Sure, but you're going to be the one supporting those 5 brats. I'm taking the house, huh? Upon my declaration of wanting a divorce, Mike accepted it with gleeful arrogance. Prompted by his words, I immediately prepared to leave the house. But the one who would suffer once I left was Mike himself. When would he realize that, I wondered. A small laugh escaped me as I envisioned Mike's struggle. My name is Sarah Jackson. 35 years old. Mike and I hit it off in college when we were part of the same club. After several years of dating, we tied the knot. While we were together, it seemed Mike always put me first. I never demanded special treatment, but I didn't dislike him being considerate, so I accepted everything he did. He had promised during his proposal, "I will definitely make you happy, Sarah. I love you more than anyone in the world. Marry me." I loved Mike dearly, so I accepted his proposal. I was genuinely excited to see the kind of home we'd build together. Mike wanted many kids and to live in a large, luxurious house. I was all for that. Let's work hard together. Yeah. We used to assure each other like that. After marriage, Mike's attitude started to feel a bit indifferent. Did our married life not meet his expectations? Or did he start to dislike me? Despite all my speculations, I could never understand Mike's feelings. Our married life wasn't particularly disrupted, so I let it be. Maybe someday, he'd return to his gentle, caring self. That was my hope. Several months later, we had a baby boy. To our surprise, we had twins. I knew they were twins from the checkups, but seeing them after birth is overwhelming. We really have to work hard to raise them. Sure. Even though Mike was the one who wanted kids so much, he seemed distant somehow. He even resisted when I tried to get him to hold our babies. Why won't you hold them? Look how cute they are. Well, I just don't know how to handle them. If that was his reason, I could somewhat understand. I thought we'd get used to it together. About 3 months passed since our twins were born. But Mike still didn't engage with them. He didn't just avoid holding them, it seemed like he was evading them. I tried my best to bring Mike closer to our kids, but nah, I'm good. That's not okay, Mike. You should have a bit more responsibility. You are a father after all. I wanted to say that, but I figured Mike must be tired too, so I held my tongue. Moreover, while Mike seemed uninterested in interacting with the children, he was working hard and providing for the family. So, I didn't feel like complaining. Later, Mike approached me again, saying he wanted more kids. Hey, what do you think? But I can't take care of 3 kids all by myself. The other 2 are still small. If Mike would help, it'd be fine, but I was pretty sure I'd be the one doing all the parenting. If we're considering another child, Mike needs to help too. I implied this in our conversation, and Mike leaned forward and said, "I'm sorry for until now. From now on, I'll take proper care. I'll work harder and I'll take care of the kids too. Remember when we got married, I said I wanted lots of kids?" "Yes, but..." "Please." Mike was pleading more earnestly than usual. With him begging like that, I couldn't say no. When the baby is born, we have to responsibly nurture each life, okay? You understand? Of course. Well then. After observing Mike's behavior, I decided to have another child. However, things didn't go as I had expected. Surprisingly, although we planned to have just one more kid, it turned out that I was pregnant with triplets. Could such a thing even happen? While having lots of children is indeed joyous, the more there are, the more money it takes and the heavier the responsibility. Hey, Mike. You see, I told Mike that we were having triplets. Mike was elated and said, "Really? That's wonderful. I'll work even harder." If Mike was this committed, it should be okay. I was able to face childbirth with relief. Fast forward 2 years later. Our family was far from happy, it was almost in shambles. We never got to live in the luxurious house we talked about when we got married. Instead, we had moved into a cheaper house. The house was an old, inexpensive apartment. Its age was showing, and in no uncertain terms, it was run down. But with 5 small kids, the house went from bad to worse in no time. I dread to think about the repair costs when we move out. I'm already feeling the chills thinking about it. Ideally, I'd like to have time to educate our kids, but unfortunately, I'm the only one raising them. Ever since our triplets were born, Mike lost interest in both me and our children. Before they were born, he had promised to help with the household chores and raising the children, but now it's quite the opposite. Hey, Mike. Look after the kids. I can't handle 5 on my own. Why should I care? I'm busy with work. Have you forgotten I'm working for this family? Besides, you're a stay-at-home mom, you should be able to look after 5 kids. But there has to be a limit. Enough already. I have a meeting to attend. I don't know when I'll be back. See ya. Mike always made up some excuse to avoid discussing things with me. By this time, the kids were able to talk and express their wishes. When they wanted to play with their dad and approached Mike. I'm busy right now. Sarah, take care of this. Take care of this. Mike was the one who wanted lots of kids, but he refuses to take care of them and seems to find them bothersome. The kids stopped approaching Mike because of his consistently abusive behavior. But that wasn't the end of Mike's outrageous behavior. He also stopped contributing his earnings to our family. Mike has always loved traveling and socializing. Before the kids were born, he used to say he wanted to travel as a family, but now I wonder if he even remembers that. Mike only gives me the bare minimum amount of money and spends the rest on his hobbies. Mike, think more about our family. At this rate, I can't even feed the kids. But we've been managing so far, haven't we? Stop being so selfish. We have enough money. I'm the one who's earning it after all. True, we've managed somehow up till now. But that's because I've been trying so hard. I've been cutting back on our expenses to save money for the kids' education. Now, I can only afford to eat 2 meals a day, if I'm lucky. Mostly, I have to make do with just 1 meal. Also, I've been taking care of the rundown parts of our house on my own. That said, it's nothing fancy. I've only done basic repairs to make it look decent. But Mike probably doesn't know any of this. He comes home drunk almost every night. Before we knew it, our home was no longer the fun and happy place we had envisioned when we first got married. It had turned into a gloomy, conversation-free hell. When did it become like this? What choices did I make wrong? The more I think about it, the more I realize that Mike is the cause. If only he could rethink his views on family and children, things might get a little better. Sigh. Looking at the dwindling money and bank balance, all I could do was sigh. Around this time, I seriously started considering divorce. If I stay with Mike, I can't imagine our children growing up healthy. Even now, the atmosphere at home is like a funeral. What's going to happen when the kids hit puberty and start growing up? I subtly asked the kids how they would feel about living apart from Mike. Hey, would you be sad if Mom and Dad started living separately? No. As long as I'm with you, Mom. My oldest son answered with a smile. I asked the other kids as well, and they all gave the same answer. While I was happy with their responses, I also felt a bit complicated. One morning, while I was going through all this, I woke up feeling extremely dizzy, to the point where I couldn't get out of bed. Somehow I mustered up the strength to get up and went to the living room. The kids were preparing breakfast and getting dressed by themselves. But Mike was different. Hey, Sarah. What have you been doing? Where's my breakfast? My clothes? Wait a minute. Hurry up. I'll be late for work. Okay. I pushed myself to the limit, making preparations for Mike. Without a word of thanks, Mike grumbled as he left for work. Well, a little sleep would probably do the trick. I explained to the kids that I was not feeling well and decided to sleep on the living room couch. Unlike Mike, the kids understood that I was not well. A little sleep would make things better, I thought. But then, Hey! I opened my eyes at the sound of Mike's voice. Mike seemed to be pretty angry. Welcome back. What's the deal, not having dinner ready when I get home? And the dishes are still from this morning, and you haven't even cleaned up properly. What are you thinking? You're a stay-at-home mom, you could at least do your job properly. Something inside me snapped at these words. And you, always at work, what gives you the right to say that? What? I appreciate that you're working. But is it necessary to say so much when a family member is not feeling well and is struggling? I'm doing my best too. You promised to help with childcare and housework when we have kids, so why has it come to this? I was a fool for believing in you. It's not fair to the kids. Mike looked startled. He hadn't expected me to fight back so forcefully. But he quickly recovered and countered. I don't know, it's your job to support me, isn't it? You should consider me as your top priority. Me first, even before the kids. Got it? I realized that even the kids, who Mike had been so eager to have, were now irrelevant to him, and it saddened me. Do you really think so? What? Of course. I don't care about the kids anymore. I mean, why did we have so many kids? We didn't need 5. My husband, speaking such things casually in front of our children. Something's wrong with him as a person, let alone a parent. At the same time, thanks to Mike's remarks, I realized what he thinks about our family and children. He really didn't care about the kids or me. I couldn't stand it anymore and said, let's get a divorce. I've had enough. Mike responded without surprise, but rather with a confident look. Fine, but you can have the 5 brats. As for the division of property, I'm taking the house. He accepted more easily than I thought, but it seemed he was misunderstanding something. Does he even understand the meaning of the division of property? I'm in such mental distress, I could ask for alimony. Well, if he takes the unusually expensive house, that's fine with me. The next day. Luckily, I was feeling better, so I went to see the divorce lawyer. On the way home, looking at the divorce paper, I was relieved to finally be able to separate from Mike. At the same time, it reminded me of the past. We used to talk about wanting to build a happy home when we first got married. On the way back from the lawyer's office, I realized I was crying as I thought about various things. When Mike came home at night, I handed him the business card of my lawyer and said, from now on, all matters concerning the divorce will be dealt through the lawyer. And so, we divorced, but I had no worries at all. Because I had a strong ally on my side. The one who will be in trouble when I leave the house is Mike himself. I wonder when he will realize that. I couldn't help but laugh at the thought of Mike struggling. From the time I started contemplating divorce, I began consulting a certain person. This person wasn't my parents or my in-laws, but my sister, Amy. Amy and I have always been very close, and I have fond memories of us playing together when we were young. Hey, sis, I need some advice. Advice? That's unusual for you, Sarah. Despite her surprise, I told Amy about my issues with Mike. He wanted children, but he didn't contribute to childcare. He was constantly working and didn't pay attention to our home life. He only gave me the bare minimum in terms of money, and basically spent everything else on his hobbies. As I explained my situation, I could tell Amy was getting visibly angry. And as soon as I finished talking, Amy raised her voice. Wait, isn't that just the worst? I know, right? Amy huffed in anger. Why didn't you tell me about this sooner? I'm sorry. I didn't want to cause any trouble. That's so like you, Sarah, always thinking about others before yourself. Even though she seemed exasperated, Amy understood my situation. You're planning to get divorced, aren't you? When are you going to do it? I don't know. Well, if anything happens, feel free to come to me right away. I'll prepare so you can bring all the kids, too. Amy's words, followed by her reassuring smile, gave me strength. I contacted Amy and arranged to move into her house. The kids are fond of Amy too, which gives me peace of mind. Seeing how exhausted I was from my life with Mike, Amy actively helped out with household chores and looking after the kids. I felt guilty having her do so much for me, so I asked her to take a break a few times. However, she reassured me each time, so I gratefully accepted her help. Amid all this, I found a certain job. It was a data entry job that could be done from home. This job would allow me to earn money without putting a strain on my body. Currently, I am relying on Amy's support and my savings, but I feel bad depending on her forever. Amy agreed with my plan, so I was able to concentrate on my work. Compared to before, every day feels blissful. Of course, that's not to say I've completely forgotten about Mike. The emotional scars are still there, lingering. About 2 months had passed, I think. While I was working from home, my smartphone suddenly rang. Looking at the screen, I saw Mike's name displayed. What could he possibly want at this point? Not wanting to talk to Mike, I ignored the call. After a few rings, the call ended. Finally, it stopped. Just as I thought that, the phone started ringing again. Despite repeatedly ignoring his calls, the phone continued to ring incessantly for Mike. Annoyed, I finally picked up the phone, ready to let him have it. What do you want, Mike? You're being persistent. Hey, what did you do with the money? Huh? The money? What are you talking about? The reason Mike had called me was that the money in our joint account had disappeared. But there was no way I could know about that. After all, Mike had the debit card, and as the account book was paper-based, there's no way I could have it after our divorce. I don't know what you're talking about. Why are you asking me? You're the only one who could have withdrawn the money. You've always complained about not having money. It must have been you. What? What are you even saying? First of all, you're the one holding the debit card, and if you can check the balance, that means you have the account book, right? You've spent too much. Upon hearing this, Mike raised his voice even more. Overspending money? That can't be true. Even if I was, it shouldn't run out. When we were married, it never ran out, did it? It's inconceivable that it could all suddenly vanish now that I'm alone. Oh, he just doesn't understand. Doesn't understand how much I've been struggling. Listen, Mike. I tried to explain, but Mike cut me off. And what's up with this wall and the faucets? You didn't tell me they were all beat up. You just dumped this crappy house on me. Don't you have any human decency? You're the one lacking human decency. Before I knew it, I had raised my voice. I glanced over at Amy, worrying I had shocked her, but instead of looking surprised, she was laughing. She mouthed, "Tell him off even more. I don't think you realized, but those walls and faucets, they were always broken. I was the one who somehow fixed it and continued living. And about the money, I was the one cutting corners and struggling. I even dipped into my own savings." But Mike didn't seem to believe a word I said. "Stop lying. I did nothing wrong. It's all your fault." Where on earth does he get this confidence from? I'm questioning why I ever fell for such a man. And you know what? If you had worked harder as a housewife, none of this would have happened. I'm a divorcee, you know? A divorcee. This is ruining my reputation with women. On the other end of the phone, Mike is still ranting on. What could I possibly say to make him understand? While I was thinking, Amy came up to me. Once again, she mouthed, "Can I borrow your phone?" Amy must have heard everything Mike was saying. I thought she had something to say, so I handed her my phone. "Mike? Can you hear me?" "Huh? Who is this?" "I was talking to Sarah. Do you think it's okay to talk like that? Do you know who I am?" With that, Mike finally fell silent. After a brief pause, he spoke again. His voice clearly terrified, even over the phone. "Could it be? Amy? That's right. You sure gave my sister a hard time, didn't you?" Mike has always said he was scared of Amy. His reason was simple, he just found her intimidating. Considering he'd been bad-mouthing her, I could understand why he was scared now. "But why is Amy? You're really not the brightest, are you?" "I was with Sarah. Also, she's staying at my place now, with the kids." "Is that so? Then, I'll come over right." "Don't be stupid." Mike doesn't know where Amy lives. I can hear him trying to wheedle the address out of her on the other end of the phone, but of course Amy isn't giving it to him. All I can do is watch the two of them talk. I believe in Amy, she can handle Mike. I've always known Amy was strong. I've heard the whole story from Sarah. You make the kids but don't take care of them, you yell at Sarah to do the housework even when she's unwell, and then you call complaining about not having money or how the house is falling apart. You're really the lowest of the low, Mike. That's... Overwhelmed by Amy's pressure, Mike was finally lost for words. But Amy continued, unfazed, voicing her thoughts. About getting alimony, about not contributing to the household, about referring to his own precious children as brats. He'd done nothing but the worst things to me when I think about it now. Do you even realize what a scumbag you've been? Try looking at yourself objectively. How would you like it if all this happened to you? You wouldn't like it, would you? No, I wouldn't. Well, that's what you did to Sarah. You accused her of not having a heart, but you're the one without a heart. After saying what she needed to, Amy handed the phone back to me. Mike. At the sound of his name, Mike responded, his voice choked with tears. Sarah, I really messed up. I'm really sorry. Let's start over. This time, I'll do the housework and help with the kids. After getting an earful from Amy, it seems like Mike has done some reflecting. But there was no way I was going to forgive him. You can say what you want, but you haven't done anything for us until now. I don't expect anything from you anymore. We're divorced, remember? We're complete strangers. But, no, enough. That's enough. I didn't want anything to do with you, that's why I didn't ask for any money. But now, I'll be demanding child support. And of course, for all 5 children. The moment I mentioned child support, Mike clearly started to panic, muttering complaints under his breath. Next to me, Amy gave me a thumbs up, saying, "Good for you." So, you can expect a call from my lawyer soon. Hey, wait a minute. I ignored Mike's words and hung up the phone. Afterwards, he called several times, but I ignored them all. Eventually, Mike seemed to give up and stopped calling. I immediately consulted with my lawyer and filed for child support. Of course, Mike contacted me, saying let's talk it out, but there was no way I was going to do that. I refused Mike's proposal. In the end, it seemed that Mike had resigned himself to the fact that he would have to pay child support. Now, the child support is being paid in full every month. This is just a guess, but I wonder if Mike is now living without any savings or money. But, I don't feel sorry for him at all. I want him to reflect on how he's ignored us all these years. Me and the kids are still being taken care of at Amy's house. I've offered to leave several times, but Amy always kindly insists that I stay. But things are different now. I've calmed down a lot, so I decided to start working part-time at a local supermarket. This should ease the financial burden. From now on, I've decided to cherish the kids who have unfortunately caused so much distress, and Amy who has helped us out this time.